Hi, I'm Sarah, and I've just had an amazing conversation with Kim, and we've discussed some of my favorite topics about love, spirituality, and also topics that I feel are relevant to so many people, trauma, PTSD, and I'd just love for you guys to tune in and yeah.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here. You are going to be so happy you are here. I'm Kim Sorrelle. I'm a speaker, I'm an author. I get to do so many fun things in life, but my favorite thing to do is to meet people. And I get to meet some extraordinary people, and today is no exception to that. Sarah is amazing. I've been reading a lot about her and listening to stuff that she's said and whatever. And I love her perspective. You're going to love it. Like she comes from a place of heart, which of course I love, me, but just deep rooted in that. And I think that's where the world should be. We should all be. And so, anyway, I'm so excited. I want to get going. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. So where are you right now?
I'm in Melbourne, Australia.
So what time is it in Melbourne?
It is early here. It's 4 a.m.
4 a.m. God bless you, Sarah. Thank you for being with me at 4 a.m. I know that's not easy, and so I really appreciate it. And my listeners will too. Of course, my audience, my people will love it that that you're doing this. So, Sarah, I want to start with you. I want people to really get to know you. So, I would love for you to tell me about 8-year-old Sarah.
Gosh, 8-year-old Sarah had been through, I think, a lot by that age, I must say. My earliest years were kind of probably marked with a lot of, I mean, I gained a lot of insight, but I also experienced a lot of trauma from 0 to 7. So I think. I was just a little bit about 8-year-old Sarah. I was born with very intense extrasensory abilities. So that's always kind of given me, I think, from day one, a different perspective of the world than your average person. Um, and when you're little, you don't really kind of know if other people, if that's what they're experiencing or they're not, or what exactly that is. There's no manual. But I do know that a really amazing thing that I took from that I already had by the age of 8 was that I was quite a spiritual person. I have been all my life. I've always felt that connectivity to a higher power. Um, and so I guess I've always really felt that support, which was great. So by 8 years of age, I was quite insightful in that sense. And, in another sense, I was very shut down because I was suffering from complex post-traumatic stress by that age. And we're talking like, this is back in the early 90s. So it's like back then it wasn't really discussed. It wasn't really, it wasn't a topic that anyone really knew anything about. And I was actually suffering dissociative memory loss by that age as well. So it's like, I had a bit going on. I would say it's almost like a double-edged sword where it was like I had this insight and all of this amazing stuff and this real connectivity from, spiritually from that spiritual component of my life, but then my life experience and what I'd gone through. I'd been trafficked at the age of, I think it was in prep, so 5, 6. That really, and I'd actually, experienced ongoing kind of trauma leading up to that as well. So I kind of had this, implicit memory in my body, and then yet at the same time suffering dissociative memory loss and trauma. So it was like, it's interesting with children, they're just so resourceful. It's like a part of me was so open and playful, and always a performer. At 8 years of age, I was, playing the piano in my school assembly, and I always loved acting and things like that. So I was very expressive and I was very vivacious and very bubbly. But then at the same time, it's like, yeah, I think sadly, I did have that kind of component that I was dealing with, PTSD. Um, so yeah, it was
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I'm going to break this down because holy cow,
Mm,
that's a lot. That's a lot for an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, a whatever year old, right? I mean, okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
because there is this inborn playfulness, this childlike curiosity and
yeah,
wanting to be
yeah,
with friends and all of that, which
yeah,
that's where it should end. Like kids should just be kids and,
yeah.
with people in their lives that support them. But when you have two things going on, when you have trauma
Mm.
going on, for one thing, and you're right, I mean, PTSD, people weren't talking about it. When they
No,
started
God,
talking
no.
about it, it all had to do with people coming back from the military. So it
Yeah,
wasn't even right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and how to handle it and what it looks like, and then yeah, the disassociation is a real thing and can make you feel
Oh,
like you're
yeah,
going crazy, right?
yeah,
That had to be
yeah.
so difficult for you. So, um, and you were trafficked at a
Yes.
young age. My gosh, Sarah. And then meanwhile, though, you have this gift where you're so in tune with I call it God, with God,
Yeah,
and which is so cool. I love that. And some people just are more in tune than others. And when
yeah.
you are, it is a special gift. And I,
Think so, because you get to see what a lot of people don't, which really melts away that fear that so many people have about death and just about life in general. You feel supported because you're experiencing it. So
Mhm.
you've got that faith, you've got that knowing that some
Yeah.
people don't have, sadly, because they can't experience that. So it can be more challenging.
So did what was happening to you, which by the way, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that as a kid, this is what you went through, and you're so resilient because look where you are today, and we're going to get to that. But was it ever, this conflict in your mind, like, okay, I believe in God, I believe you're there, but why aren't you protecting me from what's going on?
Yeah, interesting. That probably evolved, I would say, later in life. I think when I was young, and this is what, I understand so much more now about children, is they don't question things. I mean, let's face it, you can get any kind of parent, and a child just won't question the parent, It's just the way kids are. They don't question adults or authority figures. And I think this is what, I always want to protect in children, because I think that's beautiful, is that they're so pure. It's a clean slate and they have no, underlying motives. They accept everything as it is. Literally, just it makes me think, just like animals, there's such a transparency. And so, no, as a child, it was like I didn't really think that way, to be honest. I do know that with the trauma, it's actually like what I experienced was so intense. It's only been in my 30s actually that I started having memory recalls, like very clear memory recalls actually surfacing. And that's when I started realizing how much I internalized everything at that age.
Mhm.
And I felt very uncomfortable about it. I didn't understand what was happening, I didn't understand what had happened. And so I kind of internalized it and didn't talk about it. And it's interesting because when you look back now, it's like, you could see that I was being abused. There were so many signs that back then, again, it's just wasn't really spoken about. But I was already exhibiting that kind of behavior, like even around kinder at 4, where I was trying to hide and I was very self-conscious, didn't want to be seen with a red nose on Red Nose Day
Mhm.
that we have in Australia. So we all had little red noses, and I was hiding, and I was very self-conscious. And because anything that made me feel uncomfortable, and abuse and things like that. Yeah. And but at the same time, it was like, I wasn't really questioned. It was just internalized and just accepted. And if anything, I just used to make up my own happy stories. So it was like I felt happy. I had a wild imagination when I was young. And, I would just make believe that everything's great and, I like how I wanted it to be. So as, I don't think I really looked at it like why, why am I not why isn't it better? Why am I not being protected? I think maybe that kind of evolved as an early adult. I think that's when I started having it was like some dark moments because I also went through, my drink was spiked when I was 20 and I actually I had quite a bad experience actually. And I think that's when I went through a bit of a dark patch and it was like, why is this happening? And, and at the same time, it's very, it's such a contrast because like you can feel like that, but at the same time, even I remember even back then at that time, there were things that happened and I could feel the protective invisible force.
Mm.
Things happened and I knew it's like I went, oh my gosh, this isn't me. Like this is God protecting me. I
Wow.
could actually I experienced it firsthand. So I think in that sense, I used to think, okay, I don't like I don't like what's happening to me. I don't, but it's confusing because like something is definitely protecting me. So it could be worse, you know?
Yeah.
But then it's
Wow.
like, but then it's like, you've got to validate how you feel, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
tricky
what's
one.
interesting? Yeah. What's interesting to me is when you're a kid, like you said, you don't question. Adults tell you
No.
things and you go, okay, that
Yeah.
must be
Yeah.
truth. So then
Yeah.
when adults are doing bad things, I would think
Mm.
you'd wonder, like, is this wrong? Something about this
Well,
feels wrong, but is it? Or how is that?
this is it's a very difficult topic because a lot of the time, and I know I've spoken to lots of people, and I know from all the research and stuff that I've done as well, that it happens to so many countless kids, sadly, is that they're abused. A lot of the time, it is a primary attachment, and a lot of the time, their realities are denied. They're told that it's kind of they're gaslit, so to speak, or it's just flat out denied, like it was with me when I was young, when I was abused, and then I was told it didn't happen, you're imagining it.
Mm,
And I mean, that does shocking things to your psyche, especially at the age between the ages of 0 to 7, when the brain is developing. That's, kind of when you're in the most, vulnerable stage of your life. You're so absorptive and to have your reality denied and stuff. Yeah, it can
yeah,
have quite a detrimental impact on a person. And, this is when you develop these, behavioral disturbances and things growing up. And, like I developed, like, I would have very extreme reactions to certain things that I'd think, why am I being so dramatic? Or why is this upsetting me so much? And because I didn't know what PTSD was. So, it's
hmm,
just walking through life so clouded and confused. At least now we're starting to learn about it, but
yeah, yeah. Well, right. Which I'm glad. I'm glad that it's finally being recognized, or it's being recognized more and more all the time, and treated. And that I think for a while they thought, well, there's nothing you can do about it, and now they're
yeah,
doing with more research, then they're figuring out some stuff. So I'm curious about this, because so many people, like you said, will
yeah,
say, no, 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 that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And,
yes,
I've known
yeah,
people who have gone to their parents and their parents have said, oh, no, we don't believe Uncle Charlie's being like that, or, whatever it
yeah,
is, right?
yeah,
And so these poor kids, it's like, holy cow. I I would like to think that when my kids were young or with my grandkids, if they came to me and said, "Hey, this is happening," that I go, "Okay,
mm,
what do we do about it?" You know?
yeah. I mean, look, sometimes it's even a little bit more subtle than that. Because I had a situation like that that was similar. My mum wasn't picking up on it. and it was happening, right in the house kind of thing. Like, and, she saw the bruises and things on me, but she couldn't put the pieces together because she couldn't fathom it at the time. And I know how deeply it's really traumatized my mum. And I know she's been through a lot when all of this came out as an adult. It's like she kind of put the pieces together, and it was really, really upsetting for her, to put it mildly,
Mm.
because it happens like that. Like she said, she said, my gosh, if I'd known, like I would never have, you know, like
Right.
she said, I would have got you completely out of there, and there's no way. But she just didn't recognize it at the time. I think there was one time that she kind of asked me, because where I got the bruises from. And when I told her, she laughed and she was like, no. And then I kind of laughed. I was only 3 and I was like, no. And I started laughing
Oh,
too. And that was it. Next subject, like we just
right.
changed the topic. So it's so, I mean, again, there's a lot more wisdom that we've obtained now. There's
Mhm.
so much more that we know about these things with child abuse and all the warning signs that, back then it just was so taboo. It just wasn't spoken about. And
Right.
and that's the thing, children don't even necessarily talk about it. It's very like with me, for example, see, it was so subtle. I had to be asked. And even when I was asked, I was very like kind of shy and, putting my hands over my face and like, It's-
Right.
you don't
Yeah.
really understand it. I mean, it's hard enough for an adult that's being abused, but from a child's perspective, it's an authority, and you don't question it.
Right.
And
Well,
if
and
you
I would
recognize
think,
the reality, that's accepted with a child. It really is.
yeah, yeah. Well, and even how to verbalize things
Yeah,
could be
exactly.
difficult, right? Yeah. Like
Yeah,
how,
exactly. I mean, and this is the thing, like I do think the education programs are kind of changing now, with school syllabus and whatnot. But I know back then when I was at school, like in the 90s, like late 80s, 90s, it wasn't something that was really taught, like how to deal with your emotions, how to express negative emotions. A lot of that wasn't discussed. So that puts a child in a very, overwhelming place, because children feel very intense emotions, but they don't know how to express that negativity in a positive way. They don't
mm,
really know, I mean, it's concepts
mhm.
that are kind of beyond their mindset, you know, beyond them.
Yeah.
So they really need guidance. And a lot of the time, kids don't. And that's why we become such dysfunctional adults.
Right.
We're
Right.
just carrying so much that's not actually our true essence, which is sad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, they talk about baggage, is a big word
Yeah.
that's thrown around all the time. And
Yeah.
and to me it doesn't quite do it. Like, yeah, it's baggage, but it's damage.
It
And
is.
right. And so, baggage can be not damage, but it's damage, and then overcoming. And there's people that go their whole life and never deal with it, and
Yeah.
live with it and live in it, and don't
Yeah.
become who they're really supposed to be because it's holding them back, it's weighing them down.
Yeah, that's it, because it's a challenge to get past it. And a lot of people just can't, um, you know, I don't know if it's that they can't handle, but it's difficult. It's a challenging thing, because you need to become educated as well. You need to educate yourself about, what's happening, and to understand it, because I think understanding is kind of key in healing as well. I found it really difficult in the beginning of my healing journey, because I couldn't sit with emotions, like even just feeling it. And I was working with a government agency at the time that was really supportive. And they were just like, wow, they could see how fragile I was. My nervous system was just like this, oh, delicate little thing that would just get triggered at nothing, like you could barely talk about certain subjects with me, and then I would trigger. And then I couldn't handle feeling any emotion. And so that, a lot of people are in situations like that, and it's really challenging. And it's not that they don't want to heal, but It is very difficult. It is very difficult. And then some people, aren't ready to face it. There's such a, wide plethora of things going
Yeah.
on.
Well, and there's a judgment too that
There
comes,
is.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, people, I would think it's the whole gamut, or what I've witnessed in my lifetime. It's like widespread people from denial to get over it
Yep.
to, whatever, why you're older now, why does it bother you? Or because so many people just, there's such a lack of understanding. I don't think people are
Yeah.
purposely trying to be cruel or anything. I think
No.
there's just an
No.
ignorance around it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, we project stuff without even realizing that we're doing it half the time. And the thing is that damage, that we kind of carry, it alters our perspective. And sometimes we'll misjudge people and we'll misunderstand things because we're carrying that's altering our perspective and we're not maybe looking at it for how it is. It's almost like, looking in the mirror when you've got a full image, you can see the whole picture, right? But imagine you're looking into a mirror and the mirror is broken. And what you're seeing back is all these different pieces of you fragmented. And that's kind of what it's like with trauma, with that damage. You're not actually seeing a whole image, a clear image back. It's fragmented and it's all over the shop. And so that's distorting your actual view and how you're seeing things. And that's then makes it so easy to misunderstand others or project things, project that onto others without even meaning to. And I mean, we're all one big, almost connected harmonic web in a sense. We're all interconnected. And I think we all, I think sadly that trauma makes us feel so separated. We just
Mhm.
we kind of lose that connectedness. It's very, very easy to lose.
Yeah. So, okay. So going back to then your healing journey. So,
Yeah.
at what age, like, were you able to separate yourself from the situation, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, that's been, oh my gosh, it's been up and down. It has, this is one thing I'll say about healing is, it's not linear. It goes from absolute moments of brokenness to euphoria where you're like, yes, I've had a breakthrough. I'm doing this to then back to the brokenness. And this is it. You might take 3 steps forward and then you might take 8 steps back and then 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it's kind of like that. So I've had moments where I've been able to separate myself from it as early as I felt like after I had an NDE experience at 20, that's when I actually decided to look at holistic healing modules. Because prior to that, I was just kind of, like, I was just talking to doctors and things. But again, it was so superficial. And I was just given medications and stuff like that. And that wasn't helping me at all. And so it was kind of at that age that I started separating it. Just the fact that I even was looking at an alternative healing method that already says to you, hey, like you're differentiating, you're not just stuck in the mud. You're actually seeing, okay, I want to get from here to here. This isn't me. This is hindering me. So that's already a step forward, right? I think a lot of the time people, we're our harshest critic. And I think even if you can see that and you want to work on it, you're already, so far
Mm.
advanced. That's
Oh my
massive.
God.
And you should be proud of yourself because a lot of people don't get to that stage even
Right.
where they're even
Right.
looking at options and they're even, or even listening to this show, you know?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, sorry, I
oh,
was
yeah.
just gonna say you mentioned that there was a moment.
Yeah, I felt like that was for me the first moment that I had was really when I was 20. That I decided, okay, I really want to be, this is where I'm at, but I don't feel like this is really me. This doesn't feel natural to me. So that was kind of my first, I think, like aha moment where it was like I could separate myself from the trauma and see that this isn't who I really am. Something's
Mm.
not right. And back then again, I still didn't recognize at that point that I had PTSD, I mean, Oh my gosh, I think sometimes spirit must look down at us and we're just like these guinea pigs that keep shocking ourselves. You're probably like, oh, bless them, just watching us running around in circles. It's like I still hadn't worked it out then, but I knew that that wasn't me, and it was like I just wanted to start. I wanted to. I knew that I deserved better. I thought this isn't the way that I'm living is existing, and I thought, you know what, there's a different way. It can't be just being given pills and things. So that's kind of when I actually started doing yoga. I started doing yoga and I saw a naturopath and I started kind of, working with that every day. And I found that that did help because I actually had an eating disorder back then as well. And that I felt like I would never get over that. It was so challenging at the time. It was like, again, I always say it's like a double-edged sword. It was like my lifeline that I would go to when I would, sometimes I would get these feelings of overwhelm, like terror in my core. And it's like, I would just go to that. It would help me. But then at the same time, it makes you feel crap as well. So you're doing it and you're miserable. So you're getting this very fast fix. So that's kind of, that was the first stage of my healing, I think, separating that and going, okay, there's got to be another way. And I thought I'm going to learn about food. I'm actually going to learn how to eat better so that I feel better. And if there's certain supplements and things I can take. And then I started doing yoga because I thought this might help me with learning to ground that kind of trauma, that pain.
Mhm.
So that was the first step. And I was actually starting to evolve. Then I met my now ex-husband. And it was like I kind of went through, it's like I kind of got past the eating disorder. But then it was like a part of me shut down. So that's why I say healing is just so, it's not straightforward. It's a very
Yeah.
interesting, you know.
Yeah, well, a couple things in there. One is I would think when you can put a name to it, and it's not
Yeah,
just some vague
exactly.
concept, but when you can put a name to it, that's got to help. And
Yeah.
I wonder with you, do you think the eating disorder, I
Mm.
have not gone through anything like you've gone through, but I do know that when I've gone through grief or gone through, hard times in life, it's like whatever I can control, I want to control. And
Yes, that's it.
so, yeah, was that what
Yeah.
it was with the eating disorder?
I would say so. I would say so. And also, I was actually, when I was researching, I heard that when you get certain urges and one of them is food, that tends to be very limbic, that back part of the brain that's very survival. Now, that tends to be, I think, 0 to 2 years of age, interestingly enough. So when we get very basic urges like that, it tends to go back to early childhood. And I know with me, the abuse kind of started with me when I was in diapers. I was very, very, very young. I think I was
Mhm.
about two. I just have this one kind of memory about being winded and getting this big shock.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's interesting how it kind of evolved into something with food. And it was like, yeah, because it is control. Because you sit there and you go, when you feel so out of control in your life and you don't even kind of realize you are using it as control. It took me a long time to work that out as well. At first, it just felt like relief. It was like, this feels good. This is something in my life that's giving me joy because I don't feel like I'm getting much of it. And then afterwards, it was this intense feeling of like, oh, no, no, I can't keep that in, like, oh, well, I'm going to grow sideways and it's not in height. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, that the symptoms of
yeah,
what you're going through on the inside do sometimes show on the outside.
yeah, exactly. They do, they manifest
Hmm.
externally.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you are today. So you've been through this journey that, like you said, it's not linear. You're going to go back and forth and sideways and up and down. moments of, oh, I'm there, and then moments of, I've not gone anywhere. And it is what it is. But to me, the beauty with you, Sarah, is that you're doing the work. Like you are healing, that certainly an ongoing process. There's no way that an overnight or even a
Mm,
decade or I don't know, you can look at it from
mm,
the future, and look back at the past and go, oh yeah, I'm totally over everything that happened to me, right? I mean, I don't know that
yeah.
anybody ever gets to that point.
I mean, there's so many layers to healing. That's the thing. I mean, we're like an onion with multiple layers. And I believe if we really hit that point, we probably wouldn't even be, would probably almost become spirit form, honestly, if we had nothing and we were just completely, a pure energy, so to speak. I mean, there's so many layers to us. There's so much depth. Sometimes it's true, like you think this is it. Like I'm really healed, and then you can face a situation in life and feel a trigger come up, and a familiar old issue come up, and you think, wow, here we go. Like this is another layer of it. I think it's just if we can drop the judgment because you know I know that this is how I felt in my life. You have this expectation, and you do feel a certain amount of shame if you're not, it's hard for us to just be really open and honest about, it's like I loved this show Oprah did a while ago, The Me You Can't See. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, yeah, that's so raw and that's so honest because that's how so many of us suffer because we don't really come out and say that because we're just scared about being judged. Everyone wants to be accepted and felt, seen and heard. And we don't want to be judged, So it's really that can be really hard as well. If we could
Mm-hmm.
drop that, can you imagine
Oh my
how
word.
the progress that we would probably make?
Yeah, no kidding, guy. And we're so good at it, right? Judging each
Yeah.
other. And like
Yeah.
I'm writing a book on grief right now, and grief is certainly a part of what you're going through and
Yeah.
what you need to get through or whatever. I always, when I talk about grief, I always think of, people say, oh, get over it or, whatever. And I always picture it like this, like a blanket, like a weighted blanket that is on top of you, smothering you. And little by little, you stick out a hand, and little by little, you take a breath. And eventually you get on top of the blanket. You get on top of grief. You don't get over it. You don't,
Yeah.
whatever, but you can get on top of it. And
Yeah.
right?
That's it. Yeah. Just because I mean, this is the thing as well. Like I used to think it was something that you had to get rid of. And, as long as I felt that, I was always struggling. It was always a resistance. It's like trying to go, against a current. And it's impossible. It's like trying to control the ocean or something, like.
Yeah.
But when
Well,
you understand it's not about getting rid of it, but it's about learning to be with it
mhm.
and
Well,
just it is what it is,
what a
you know.
difference. Just those
Yeah.
words alone, it makes it
Yeah.
so different. And so we
Yeah.
judge ourselves because we have this expectation that maybe we've heard in the world or, whatever, this
Yeah.
expectation about ourselves, like, why aren't we better? Why aren't we in a different place? But then we get judged by other people who think we should
Yeah.
be somewhere we're not. And it's
And
like,
that's it.
man. Yeah, you have no idea what's going on inside of somebody. Like nobody gets to judge that. Nobody gets to put a timeline on it. Nobody gets
Yeah.
to, have expectations built around it on how someone should act or behave or be thinking or anything like that. Like we're all
Yeah.
so individual and every day we've lived leads us to today. So the
Mm.
good, the bad, the ugly, right? So the
Yeah.
stuff that happened when you were two and three and four and five, etc., that's part of who you are.
Yeah,
It
that's
it
it.
it
That's
doesn't
it.
it's not it doesn't make you something to be shameful of, but of course it's gonna forever be part of who you are.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of shaped you in that sense, 0 to 7 in particular. Like I said, because your brain's developing at that age. Um, so it's you look at adults walking around, I got to be honest with you, it's like there is such a polarity. balance of like, you're an adult, but you are your childhood. I always know like what someone's gone through as a child because you can see it in them as an adult. You can see people that have had more of a stable upbringing than others or a happier environment, toxic, traumatizing. You can kind of see it. People that have, like been struggling, very comfortable, like it just always shows on people. So even though, because there are foundational years, really. So, and that's okay. But again, it's just, yeah, it is. It's that judgment that really knocks us out because I think it's such a big part of, it's just we want to feel accepted, right? We want to actually feel accepted and understood.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
So,
mean,
yeah, absolutely.
so many people have a story. I mean, everybody does, really.
Hmm.
And the thing is, it doesn't matter if the intensity is irrelevant. It's the relativity of that to you specifically.
Oh,
It
good
doesn't
point.
make anybody's story less or more important just because of the intensity. It's how that impacted them, and we all matter.
Wow, that is so well put. I yeah, that's so interesting the way you put that. It's true because your story is your story and
Yeah.
it's nobody else's. And so your story is going to mean something to you. And it is going to shape you and form who you are today and like even beliefs and opinions and all this stuff, it's not like we just came up with it. It's
No.
been developing all these years, as long as you've lived, all that stuff has been developing. So
Yeah.
so today, Sarah, you're in this whole different place than you were when you were 20, probably 25, 30. Like you're in this whole different place. You're walking this walk and you're not just doing it for yourself either. You're helping other people. So I want you to talk about that, like what you're doing in life right now and where you're at.
Oh, look, it's challenging. I'll be honest, it's very challenging because I'm working on a startup. And I think anybody that has worked on a startup will know what I'm saying with the stress.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. But at the same time, I felt such a big calling to do this and I've risked everything to do it. So I'm in a bit of a stressful period, to be completely honest, at the moment. There's a lot of pressure in startups, but the concept and the idea actually came to me from a higher power. It was very spiritually motivated. So it's something that I believe that could be so helpful to humanity. So that's kind of why I'm pursuing it. But I think it's like we were talking about before when it's like, it's not so much about getting past it, but learning how to deal with things better. So my situation at the moment, like I said, yeah, it is quite stressful and I do have my moments. But it's just like learning how to kind of live in that duality of those moments, Like I find like even yesterday, I was really stressed at one point. So I was like, you know what? I just put myself in bed because that's my place that just feels really supportive and nourishing. I feel cocooned and just safe and nice and so I'll just lie there, and it's like, okay, I can't control this and you can't. It's like this is life, There are situations and circumstances that can be completely beyond your control. And it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
this is making me feel crap. But then it's like, I can kind of counteract that with being in bed. I'm absolutely feeling warm and just beautiful and protected and nourished and all of that. And then, okay, so there's that with that, and you kind of learn to live in that kind of jewel. And that helps, that helps with the acceptance and it helps to support yourself. So that's like, I've kind of learned I would say, I wouldn't say like, oh, my life is amazing now. No, it's actually quite challenging, but I think I've evolved a lot just as a person. That's all. It's like I think through the work that you do, you gain self-trust. And when you've got self-trust, it starts turning into, more of an acceptance. And then that kind of evolves. It's like you're evolving a relationship with yourself, right? You learn to love yourself. And that's something that takes time with a lot of people. It did with me. It's taken me ages, but I would say that's the key difference. It's not that like life has magically changed for me or, oh my gosh, it's great now. No, it's actually pretty challenging. My startup's still in its
Yeah.
early stages and it's going on to, it's 9 years now in the making. It's a big one, but I would
Yeah.
say I've evolved a lot with it. And that's the part that I love. It's like no matter what happens, knowing that you're in a different place, that it's not that where you're at, your external circumstances and environment doesn't depict your mental state, you
Mm.
know, that you can
Hmm.
look after yourself and know that you're worthy, that you're enough, no matter what's happening externally to you. That's
Yeah. That's
probably
key.
the best
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure is. And I think you're right. I mean, the loving yourself. I'm much older than you are. And so I've seen different terminology over the years, right? And
Yeah.
for a while, or even with some people still today, it's almost like, well, self-love, that it's egotistical or it's selfish or
Yeah.
whatever. And to me, it's the complete opposite of that. The most selfless thing you can do is love yourself. Because when you love yourself and you realize you're the only you, there's nobody that will ever be exactly like you. There's never been anybody exactly like you. You are the only you ever. And
Yeah.
so you're special, unique, and you are who you are. And so recognize that the beauty of the uniqueness. So, if nothing else, recognize that. And because when you do love yourself, when you can appreciate yourself for who you are, if you can't figure out why, what could you do to feel better about yourself? But you should just love yourself because when you do, then you can love others in a different way. You operate in the world in a whole different way when you love yourself, I would say.
Yeah, I think that comes from self-trust, to be honest. You
Mhm.
build it. It's like when you meet someone and you're in a relationship, it grows through nourishment and it grows through trust and like, I think constant effort, which builds trust. It's showing up for yourself when it's really hard. And it's okay as well. It's also learning that, like, hey, we're human. This is another thing that I can't stress enough is that, who hasn't made bad choices at one point or made mistakes or done things that, you kind of can think, wow, I feel ashamed of myself, or like, wow, that was a really unwise choice. And we've all been there and we all do that. I think that's really key in self-love is that acceptance of that shadow stuff about you, the shadow aspects, just as much as the light because, we don't exist one without the other. Otherwise, we'd all be perfect. But when you can really come to accept that yourself fully and honestly, and realize that, hey, like we're human and we have human moments, and to think that we don't is unrealistic. It's not possible.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
true.
that's I think that's a really big step in healing. That was a big one for me because it allowed me to start feeling. It really helped me and also to get out of that survival mode where your nervous system is actually safe enough. You feel safe enough to be present.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Yeah, and I love that you talked about trust in it as well, because that's a big one. And
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows probably that how fragile trust can be and how
Yes.
it can be once it's broken, it's so difficult to repair and it takes time and it takes time. So trust in yourself is going to be the same way as trust in other people. And so yeah, I love that you talked about that. That is so true and it's so good. So
Yeah.
now you're working on this startup and
Yes.
that is a calling, you've been called to do, which
Yes.
does that, I would think it would help to know that it's a calling, that it's something
Yeah.
you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
So
It actually,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
it quite
Yeah.
literally came to me from spirit, from a higher power. So yeah, it was like, because I've always had this ability all my life where I've been, I mean, I've kind of got it all going on. I call it the circus. I know it's not very common to have as, like, I've been told that it's quite rare to have as much as I've got going on at the same. Some people are like a medium or empathic or this, but I've kind of got all of it going on. Like I'm telepathic. I have telekinesis where I've been able to turn lights and things on and at will, and very strong medium, psychic. I mean, you name it. Like I've kind of, channeling, remote viewing, all of that, very, very strong. And so ever since I was little, I always had spirits, people pass on and they, just, I can always talk to, communicate with the other realm. And yeah, so that's kind of, it was really interesting because that's kind of where it came to me from. It was something that came to me from God with the work that I've actually undertaken. So it was, I feel like when God comes to you and shows you something, it's an invitation that you have to accept. Like you can't say no.
Yeah, yeah, God's pretty hard
Like,
to say
okay, I,
no
I may
to.
not I remember thinking, are you sure this is the right person? Are you sure I can do this?
Oh, but you said yes, which is so
Yes.
cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
so talk about what it looks like.
Yeah, I was basically shown it's what I'm calling it is it's NI, but it's natural intelligence in that sense of really what we're actually able to achieve right now is we're, only using about 10% of our brain, and we actually can't really perceive, our eyes actually perceive things two-dimensionally, and then through the differences, they create a three-dimensional functional, kind of model of reality, right? So, we experience the world in 3D, but the electromagnetic spectrum is only like a pinhead, kind of what we can experience, what we can perceive with our physical senses, but how much more is beyond that, right?
Hmm.
And as human beings, we actually have an ability to connect to God. We can actually reach a much higher state. And in that higher state, we can actually access God. We can actually live very differently. We have some component in our DNA, which is what my work's all around, genetics. But what I think is really amazing with DNA is it actually works like a little modem, and it is like a little biological internet that we have inside of us. And I think we don't, what I was shown is that, we're looking at, there's so many advancements in that in AI, which is, commendable. And I think it's amazing what we're achieving. But there's so much that we have naturally, organically, that's internalized, that we have inside us. So it's like we're kind of looking externally to us when we need not to. We actually have natural intelligence. We actually have capabilities that we haven't even tapped into. This is why some people, like myself, you can explain, it's very explainable what I've got going on. If you probably looked in, I mean, not that I don't want to be tested or anything like that. But, you would see that parts of my brain and things would light up that don't with other people. And that's, me being more in tune. But we all have these capabilities. We just haven't tapped into them. And my work's kind of looking through, it works in sound with genetics that we've kind of already shown through research can actually help reparate and actually program DNA with sound, but not in a way it's not invasive. It's not anything against free will or anything like that. But for example, like 528 hertz, how they say that actually is the frequency of love, and that helps to shift DNA. So it's kind of looking at sound on a whole new level to help kind of tune and work like a little modem with DNA that can tap into a kind of a higher network.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's so
So,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
because so many people are just completely blocked off, right? And say,
yeah, yeah.
that
And it's
doesn't
a
exist or
real,
that's,
that's it. And it's just really awakening us into a higher level of conscious awareness that we currently have.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
really like just us being able to reach our full potential. And
right.
thing when we hit, I know when I've hit higher states of consciousness, I've experienced this love, like this support, this love, and so many people have that have had NDE experiences, or there's just so many people that can tell you the same accounts. They're always the same, a weightlessness, this love, this support. They all experience God,
Mm.
and with it such, oh my gosh, a presence that we just don't really, that we can't really grasp, that we can't comprehend like this, but that's actually possible.
I love it that it's possible and
Mm,
that
mm.
anybody can tap in. But it takes somebody like you who is so tapped in to say this is how it's done. Like this, these are things you
Yeah,
can do to get there. And
yeah,
yeah, and I've heard the same thing from everybody too, just the overwhelming feeling of love that
yeah, yeah.
and God is
Oh, it's
love. I mean
beautiful.
that
It is
that's the
beautiful.
essence of God is love.
And it's incredible because it's so omniscient as well. It's like you are everything and you know everything, and it's this complete entirety of field. It's instantaneously infinite. And this is the thing, like, I believe that we can bridge that in a sense, that heaven on earth. We can literally bridge that and we can access God. And it doesn't need to be a certain few people that are tuned in. We can all do that. And I think that that's possible. I really do.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me how it's possible. What do you?
That's literally
Yeah.
it, through genetics, because we can actually, it's like a little combination code that's like, I don't know, you remember the dial-up modems? I don't know, like younger
Yes. Yes.
generations if they're familiar with that, but it's like a dial-up modem that dials up. It's like having God's phone number, and it actually can connect through genetics, through sound. And it's like we have an ability through genetics because we already know it's like a biological modem. We also know that chromosomes function as a holographic computer. So we kind of know that, hey, we have these quantum capacities in us. We're like walking, living quantum computers. And if that's the case, then we're a biological internet. Well, we've got the dial-up code that's in the DNA. And that's kind of the exciting part, what DNA can actually tap into. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working through.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I know like sometimes I fall asleep to theta waves or
Mm,
there's beta waves. Like you can find things or you were talking about the frequency of love that
yeah.
yeah, that and it apparently works. Like it
Yeah.
changes things for you.
Yeah. Sound is amazing. It's such a powerful thing. I started off originally, I was working as a music producer, and then it was like it just evolved. It went from that into kind of more science sound, and then it evolved from that again when I kind of had that experience that with God, when I was really shown that. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. And I had quite an experience with that. But it's beautiful because it's so gentle. Sound is, and when you think about it, I guess everything really is comprised of sound.
Mm.
You sound is kind of matter compressed in a sense. And it's beautiful because it's non-invasive and it's harmonic to our systems. And it's like when you think about it, we're kind of like almost instruments that are being used every day. When you think about it, we're not being tuned. So no wonder we're just, I mean, you don't have a piano and never tune it.
Right.
It's a regular attunement kind of thing, and we can actually do that with sound. And that's what I love. We don't have to put chips in our brains or anything invasive or nasty. We don't need to be controlled. I think a lot of corruption in that comes from a place of ignorance, which is fear. This is people get scared about these advancements sometimes and they think, oh, is it going to be, could that be catastrophic? And it's like, actually, no, it's fear that's catastrophic. Love is a vibration that is such a freedom. It knows that conflict is just futile. It's way beyond
Mm.
that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah. Oh my
that's
gosh. Yeah, I
that's
love it that you said that. Because, you know, I
Mm.
did this thing where I dedicated a year, went on this eat, pray, love kind of journey in Haiti and dedicated a
Ah,
year to figure out the true meaning of love. And when it comes down to it, one of the biggest things about love is when you love, when you truly love, you understand love and you live in it, you recognize it's who you are, that you are love. And so you love yourself and you love others, like you love everybody. It is
yeah.
it is total freedom. It is the freest way you can possibly live because there's no judgment with love.
Mm.
So you're not walking around going, "Oh gosh, I don't know what she thinks she's doing," or, what am I
Yeah.
doing? You're judging yourself because there's no judgment with love.
Yeah.
Way too pure for judgment to come in. So there
That's it.
is, yeah, an incredible
It's like,
freedom.
it's like all the conditions are just dissolved. All the conditions placed on love that we place on love are dissolved when it's pure love. And that's it.
Mhm.
There is no conflict. It's absolutely futile, you
Yeah,
know? And
yeah.
that's kind of I haven't hit it that many times in my life, like really high states. Once where I stopped breathing for 5 minutes, like my body just went beyond. Like it was
Wow.
such a transcendental kind of moment. And my vision went holographic. I could see such a wide, it was incredible. Like I've had experiences that people say you can only have on DMT or
Yeah,
things
right.
like that. And I'm like, no, no, I don't need to. I don't need anything. But when I've hit these really heightened states, it becomes so clear. It's like the level of intelligence and the clarity, you realize, my gosh, it's actually fear that creates this need to control, which creates a need for power and domination, which then
Mm,
creates conflict and lack. And that's all just based in ignorance. The higher the intellect, the more love based that it is, the more free that the conditions are dissolved, and it's an absolute higher order. It works. There's no need for control because you don't need anything. There is no lack, you
right.
know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. I love what you're saying. It's so true. It's so true.
Mm.
Yeah. And really it's our only job,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it's
yeah,
not our job to judge others. It's not our job to live in fear. I mean, really our job is to love. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's that basic because then everything stems off of that. Because when you
yeah,
lead in love or you walk in love, you're going to make decisions based on love.
yeah.
And
That's
so it's a whole different life when love is in control. So what can people do? Like we only have a few minutes left, unfortunately. I could talk to you for hours, Sarah. I can't believe our time has gone by so fast. But
it.
what can people do? How can they get a hold of you? But also, is there something that people could start doing today that would change their lives, that would get them more in tune with God and change things for
Yeah.
them?
I mean, look, honestly, I would say every day is an opportunity, right? And you don't hear God in the noise. You hear God when you go still, because I think that's what the sad part is. The noise actually drowns it out, you know, because
Hmm.
God is so subtle, it's in the silence. That's where the beauty is. Like, that's actually where you feel God. So I would say it's going still and it's becoming more present. Because, this is the thing, God's always there. It's just that we're not familiar with that, you know? So it's when we become more present and we listen to our gut or our heart, like we'll feel something. It's like feel into that. Don't be scared. And then try to go silent. Like literally, that's kind of what I do. I mean, I'm very blessed that I'm able to kind of tap into that all the time. But I do know that when I'm stressed, when there's more noise, that it's harder to hear.
Mm.
And I would say definitely silence is key. It's about becoming still and then just being open and receptive. So it's like even, and you may not feel it at first. Like these are practices that, over time you kind of evolve. But I would definitely say to start off, like even 5 minutes of just breath work, things like that, sitting still and just noticing your breath going in, going out, and just becoming familiar with stillness is, I feel like, the first step because
Mhm.
we're in such a noisy world that is so active that we're actually taught, like some of us, I know I used to feel guilty resting. No,
Yes,
no, I should
yeah.
be doing something. I should be working. I should be, and it's like, no, no,
Right.
that's actually key. That is such key to progression is just that rest and that stillness because that's where you find God. So I would definitely recommend that as a first step is
Yeah.
starting to become familiar with that stillness and silence.
I love that. I love that. That is such a great first step. And if you can do it in nature, all the better. But even
Yes, even
right.
sitting in grass. Yep. I do it because I've just got, a little garden, but just sitting in the grass and it's just noticing the little things because God's in all the little things.
Hmm.
It's just the sun on your face and how the grass feels. Just all the little things like that. I look at the trees, I look at the birds and things, and I just look at the beauty of it. It's just simplifying it because we're so complicated and we need not be half the time. Simplicity, it's rudimentary, but all the complexity is based in, it's rooted in basic properties and its nature and things like that show you, God's majesty, like how incredible that is to be there. Look how perfect it all is.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Ah, I love that. That is such great advice. That is so good. And what a great practice for everybody. And what a great beginning. How can people get in touch with you and work with
Yes.
you?
So my website is www.annika.com, and that's Anna, as in ANNAKA.com, or there's my Instagram account that's one word, Arnica Official. And yeah, you can reach me on any of those actually. You can write to me. My Instagram has got heaps on it. I kind of feel like that's my main social media. So yeah, either one of those is great.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yes, and do it. Get a hold of Sarah. There's so much wisdom that you have inside of you and I love everything that you said today was just so good and so powerful and yet simple. And there's just something so beautiful about that. So thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable and open to share. I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, well, thanks. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And I just pray that until we see each other again, that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.